On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, we take a look at a big trade in the NHL. We take a look at Tuesday night's DFS selection and a loaded 9-game betting board.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, party people, and thank you for being with us yet again. This is Tuesday's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, a part of the Locked On Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. We very much appreciate it. Please check us out across all platforms you find your favorite content. Steele and I really appreciate it. Speaking of Steele, he's my man, recently out of college sports media in downtown Toronto. He is a YouTube content creating and DFS guru and my co-host. I'm your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, and we have another exciting episode for all y'all out there today, where we'll be looking at the loaded 9-game NHL betting board. We have some awesome DFS selections for Tuesday night from my man Steele, and we're going to kick off the show, Steele, with a nice little trade in the NHL. The Calgary Flames seemingly going for it this season with a big deal to swing for Tyler Toffoli. Let's take a look at that from a fantasy angle, Steele. I'm interested to hear what you have to think about this, my friend.
I love this trade for the Calgary Flames. I think that's exactly what they needed to kind of set them up going into the playoffs for a big run in the postseason. We've seen it over the last couple of years that they've struggled offensively, especially in those first rounds. But for fantasy, I think this is huge, and people should really take a chance on Tyler Toffoli. He's only owned 50% in Yahoo fantasy leagues, owned at 25% on ESPN fantasy leagues. So the numbers, I expect them to skyrocket in the next couple of days, if not the next week. And they've already slotted him in on the second line with Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman. I would expect maybe some lines will be jumbled around a little bit to see what kind of, where he should fit, where he fits, get the chemistry going with the Flames offensively. But I've had Tyler Toffoli on my team, and he was the best Montreal Canadian player this entire season. He's only played 37 games because he was out for COVID as well. So 26 points in 37 games. It's obviously not up to his standards, but again, the Montreal Canadiens have been an abomination this season. So for me, I've had him on my fantasy team. I picked him up. I think it would be a great addition to your fantasy team to pick him up as well for the next week, as well for the remainder of the fantasy leagues.
Yeah, it might even be worth now that this is one of those resurgent type deals for a guy's fantasy value, right? If you're in one of those positions where you might want to swing for the fences in a dynasty format and maybe sacrifice a pick or a pick and a prospect for a guy like Toffoli, who's now going to slot into that top six pretty seamlessly. I think his game really matches up well for what they're trying to do offensively.
Oh, yeah.
So this could really be huge for also a Calgary team that is clicking already. So this move makes sense because of how hot they have been. You can almost see it coming. Like, the rumors are out there, so we knew almost what Brad Treliving was thinking. So could be a really big move from a fantasy perspective. I think also that Andrew Mangiapane is already another option there that can slot in and out. They have Blake Coleman, like you mentioned. We've talked about him. This is just a big move for Calgary in general, especially there's rumblings out there about them going for Ben Sherrod as well. So clearly they're going for it. But I would suggest, if you're in the mix for your fantasy playoffs, you might want to go for it in terms of trying to acquire Tyler Toffoli any way you can. I think is the move here, Steele.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the same situation, or sort of the same situation, with Evander Kane when he, the rumors were going around about him going with the Edmonton Oilers. He finally signs a deal. Do you take a chance on him or not? Obviously Tyler Toffoli's been playing this entire season, or for majority of the season so far, but like I said, 26 points in 37 games. He's been one of the best Montreal Canadiens player, which is one of the worst teams in the NHL. And this is a huge move for the Calgary Flames, like we've seen over the last couple of years. Like, we know how great they are offensively in the regular season, but this just sets them above and beyond going into the postseason, because they struggle so much to score goals in the first round, in the second round, even if they get there. So for me, they have their starting number one goalie in Jakob Markstrom. Their defense are huge, big. They lay the body out. They're great on the blue line. And then again, Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk, Elias Lindholm, they've been the top 3 players for the Calgary Flames. But when it comes to playoff time, they rarely show up. So I think this really takes the pressure off them offensively. And then again, for your fantasy team, like, take a chance on this guy. This guy's been great over the last four seasons, maybe even 5 seasons. So for me, I picked him up early on. He's been a great addition to my team. And yeah, like at 25% owned in ESPN, it's most likely that you can just pick him up off the free agent wire.
Yeah, and I think you made an interesting point before about how bad the Montreal Canadiens have been this year. So I really don't think the stats that you're seeing from him are really reflective of his quality or his potential. His track record is there. Toffoli's a goal scorer, and when he's on his game, he's nasty. So this is a really exciting move for Calgary Flames fans for sure. Definitely an indication of where the franchise itself thinks it's at, because you're paying a first round draft pick, 5th round draft pick, a prospect in Tyler Pitlick. Pitlick is kind of like a throw in there. No disrespect to the 30-year-old, but that's a bag of pucks move there. But at the end of the day, you're sacrificing a first round pick. So that's a very clear indication of where this franchise thinks it's at. So that, I think, is also something to circle just for the peripheral fantasy value of guys like Andrew Mangiapane, Michael Backlund, anyone in that top 6 that you might want to get your hands on. Anyone that they might be now playing with on those power play units in Calgary that are already clicking. This could be, one of those trickle-down effects for the Calgary Flames. Who knows? It might not. But at this point, with how well they're playing and how you mentioned Jakob Markstrom in the cage, this is huge on a couple different levels, especially if they swing for another big trade. If they add another big body on that blue line Steele, like Sherratt, that would be another massive add.
Yeah, that would be huge. But honestly, just thinking about it and listening to you name all these players off, this actually might be really beneficial for Sean Monahan's game as well. Like, this guy has been bounced around up and down the lineup, Flip.
Exactly.
And this actually might help him. Sean Monahan, as of right now, he's on the 3rd line. And like I said, I feel like in the next week, 2 weeks, they're going to be shifting the lines around, especially the 2nd and 3rd, try to figure out where Tyler Toffoli fits best. And he might play really, really well with Sean Monahan and get his game going as well.
100%. But what I have to get into right now, Steele, it's Primal. Got beard? Get Primal. If you are someone cares about their beard, they need to get Primal. Maybe you're that guy out there who's never considered the benefits of treating your beard with product. Primal oils will stop the itch and make your beard look healthy and groomed. Steele's going to get there soon. He's going to buy all the Primal products, and he's going to be their biggest fan. But right now, the combo kits, they are out there. They are great. They make the perfect gift for any time of year. Trust me, you're looking for a gift for you or anyone you know, hit up Primal. You'll be glad you did. These products are free from harmful synthetic ingredients with low impact on the planet. Primal Origin Oils makes balms, oils, and butters that are ripped and renowned for the best feel of beard products available. We know every company claims to have the best, but Primal challenges you to compare their ingredients and feel their beard products that you've used. We promise you will see and feel the difference. Remember to use the code LOCKEDON and it gets you 20% off. Use the code LOCKEDON at checkout for 20% off. Thank you so much, everybody, for always making us your first listen every single day. Steele and I really appreciate it. Thank you for the love. Thank you for hanging with us through now episode 14 of the reboot of this show. We really appreciate it. Right out of the break, we're going to be talking about Steele's DFS selections and, of course, finishing with our big bets of Tuesday night. But also make sure you check out Olympic Hockey Daily. It's presented by Locked On NHL. It's a bonus podcast covering all the action from Beijing. You can find it on the Locked On NHL podcast feed. And just like us, it's available anywhere you get your podcasts. Now that all that's out of the way, Steele, let's get back to what we do best, brother. I know I've been pumping you up, but for good reason. Let's dive into Tuesday's board. I won't lie, we end up talking about the same things. You go into DFS, and then we talk about the bets. That's because we think alike. We're starting to click here. But there's a lot of good games on this 9-game board. From a betting perspective, it was tricky. I don't know what you're thinking about from a DFS perspective, so let's hear what you got for me, brother.
I found it more tough to look at the matchups for DFS just because, like you said, these matchups are really, really great. I think there's a lot of great value in all of these games as well. Like the Stars and Avalanche, the Avalanche just won a 4-0 game on Sunday night as well against the Stars. The Oilers and Kings I want to touch on a little bit, but I'll start off with the first game of the night, and that's the New York Rangers versus the Boston Bruins. And this one really just has a lot of great value to me. And, you know, the New York Rangers are playing at home, and I was looking at the Bruins lineup, and it looks so bad without Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron in that lineup.
Right.
So it on besides David Pastrnak and Taylor Hall, who's on the first line, like it's actually scary how different the team looks without Marchand and Bergeron in the lineup.
I would also like to note that Taylor Hall is not the Taylor Hall of old. That's more like a shell of Taylor Hall. He's like just a name now. So, but you're spot on. Sorry, brother. Please continue.
Oh yeah, he's a complete different player from when he won the Hart Trophy a couple years ago with the New Jersey Devils. And
my goodness.
Yeah, it's scary how different his game has changed over the couple of seasons. But and that's exactly why I'm going with the New York Rangers players in this game. The Bruins are hurt badly up front. They're missing a couple players, like I mentioned. Taylor Hall is not the same player, like you said. So I'm going with the guys I usually stick with on the Rangers. Like you could go with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider on the first line. No problem whatsoever. Those guys will still be really expensive. I'm going with Artemi Panarin and Ryan Strome, who I've talked about a lot on this podcast. And again, I've mentioned this so many times. I like the way they play together. They're on the first power play unit together. And because Adam Fox is not in the lineup as well still, I'm putting Jacob Trouba in there because he's filling that gap on the first power play as well, running it on the blue line for the New York Rangers. So for me, both Artemi Panarin and Jacob Trouba, they're probably going to be upwards of $5,500. I would expect Ryan Strome to be in the range of $4,500 to $5,000 as well. So Ryan Strome not being super expensive, but obviously when you're getting Panarin and a guy like Jacob Trouba who can throw the body around, get pucks on net, as well as he's always standing in the lane blocking shots, those guys will be your most expensive player on the New York Rangers. But again, you can find great value on them as well with a guy like Barclay Goodrow or even Alexis Lafreniere who's playing on the top line.
Yeah, I could see this. The Boston Bruins without those two guys are a completely different team. There's just been a lot of stuff happening in Boston over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And mostly for all the wrong reasons. And I know Brad Marchand, it is Brad Marchand, and it was a punch to the head. It's nothing too crazy. But it's distractions. It's Tuukka Rask. It's your starting goalie. It's your number one offensive piece. Then it's your captain, right? Like this isn't just some role players here. And these are major things happening. 6-game suspension, maybe a concussion, a retirement. So you can't fault the Boston Bruins for not looking great in that first game back after those. We called the Hurricanes that night, both of our locks of the night. They came out and smacked them 6-0. And then the Bruins bounced back against the Senators, but that's the Senators. I think this is a very opportunistic spot for the New York Rangers against a beat up Boston Bruins club. I like everything you're saying here, Steele. Hit me with what else you got, brother.
And I'm sticking with another New York team, and it's the New York Islanders versus the Buffalo Sabres. And I'm taking these guys because I think it's, the start of where they really need to get going to try to catch up to the Washington Capitals right now in fourth in the Metropolitan Division. The New York Islanders, they have like 8 or 9 games in hand on the Washington Capitals. So it's not out of reach that they can't make the playoffs or make a push for the playoffs. I believe they're 16 points or 18 points back right now. So it's not far-fetched that it's possible, but it is getting very, very unlikely every other day. So for me, I'm taking a chance with the New York Islanders versus the Buffalo Sabres. I think this is the start of, I guess the second half of the season where they really need to start making a push. And guys like Anders Lee, Matt Barzal, even Oliver Wahlstrom, they're not going to be expensive. And going up against this Buffalo Sabres team, the goaltending's not great. The blue line isn't so great as well. Like we've talked about them up front. They have some decent offensive weapons. Like even Jeff Skinner has 20 goals. He had a 4-goal night the other day as well. So we've talked about offensively of the Buffalo Sabres, but again, I really feel like this is when the New York Islanders need to start going right now. And I'm taking a chance with guys like Lee, Barzal, and Wahlstrom. I don't think they're going to be too expensive. Obviously, I'm not going to, go all out with them and pick all 3 of them, but those are some options. They're going to be cheap, under $4,000 for sure. And those are the guys I'm going for with my utility spot.
That Wallstrom pick is a sneaky one. You know, I'm all about the sneaky picks. I like it in the utility slot for sure. I'm actually going to be talking about that game in a few minutes here from a betting perspective. And the New York Islanders, though, I would like to point out, have definitely been playing under what I think they should have been this season. They're not playing up to the quality of team that I think
Yeah.
they have. Also, just top to bottom, that franchise, Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz, they know what they're doing. Those are two hockey minds that have obviously worked together in the past. And then, you know, the Islanders are they're better than what their records show, I think. So there's that point, and they really need to turn it around. They need to turn it around in a hurry. So I like that angle. I like the Wallstrom pick a lot, Steele. And I think for the value as well, you gotta look into these opportunistic situations. And a guy like Wallstrom, who's had a solid season, he's a first round draft pick. The caliber is there for that price. You can't go wrong.
I think what really hurt them was last trade deadline when they were, acquiring guys. Instead of getting younger and faster, they were getting more older, veteran, experienced guys like Zach Parise, Kyle Palmieri, a couple, Zdeno Chara now, who's on the team. And I think it just really affected their game overall because, they have to try to keep up with Matt Barzal. Anders Lee was coming back from that injury. So it really put them in a weird position, as well as, of course, they were really, really hurt at the beginning of the season with COVID-19. So, they're playing catch up right now. Like I said, they have 8-9 games in hand, but they're like 18 points back right now. It is going to be a long second half of the season for them. But it is likely. I did like this team heading into the season. So hopefully they can turn it around and get things going. And I know you wanted to talk about the LA Kings matchup. I have some cheap options there with people with guys on the third line like Dustin Brown and Andreas Athanasiou. Going up against the Edmonton Oilers, I think it could be a gritty physical matchup. So I would expect a guy like Dustin Brown to get going as well.
Dustin Brown is one of those guys that he just seems to just hang around, and he's just a useful, gritty hockey player. And he's one of those kind of situations that you roll the dice and maybe he gets one of those 2-goal games or something like that, fills out the stat sheet for you. But I was actually looking at another Canadian team in play, the Ottawa Senators, Steele, and I feel like we've talked a lot about them, but they're at home St. Louis Blues. I've for some reason been watching too much hockey involving both of these teams, but I could see this game being an advantageous situation for you to look at from a daily fantasy perspective, and not to go off of your LA Kings angle here, Steele, but there's Connor Brown and Alex Formenton are guys you're going to want to look at in this situation for some value. They're playing really well together and filling in for Josh Norris and Batherson. We've talked about it. Their minutes are going up and up. His first game back, Brown had 17. He's all the way up to 25 minutes a game. He's got 5 points in 5 games. Formenton's getting 2 goals every other day. He's looking nice on the power penalty kill. Look at some value there. But really, I think my sneaky pick for DFS Steele on Tuesday, and I don't know what you think about this, is Brayden Shen. I think he'd be a worth a look because he's red hot. And his play is moving him right back up the lineup. And now he's slotted in on that top line with Ryan O'Reilly and Jordan Kyrou. He has 7 points in his last 4 games, including 2 goals and 2 assists in his last 2. I think you could probably find him for some value. And I think it's a good situation for the Blues on the road against the Senators team that I know you're not sold on. I think Brayden Shen could be a sneaky DFS pick. And side note, with him being so red hot, he's still available. He's only owned in 70% of ESPN leagues for regular fantasy purposes. So keep an eye on Brayden Shen overall. But I think Tuesday night DFS-wise, Steele, Brayden Shen could be a sneaky little pick.
Brayden Shen has been one of my favorite players on the St. Louis Blues. And we've talked about him a couple of times where, he is red hot right now, but when he's playing and he's healthy, he's one of the best players on that team. Like, he's had a couple of injuries this season that have kind of set him back a little bit. So,
for sure.
And for me as well, I did want to mention this game for bets, for the big time bets, but I stayed away from it because last week, I picked the Blues on the money line. They ended up getting demolished 7-3 or 7-4 against the New Jersey Devils. So I'm staying away from the Blues on the big time bets. Jordan Binnington has been a complete letdown for me on my bets as well as my fantasy team. So I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to get into it too much because it's hitting a little bit too close to home here. But before we get into big time bets with Flip and Steele, BetOnline has you covered this season with more props and odds and lines than ever before with football. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up to the minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with real-time updates of current games. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all platforms. That includes YouTube as well. So go check us out there. Subscribe, follow to us. Flip and I appreciate all the support you give us. So thank you so much for that. With that being said, it is now time for big time bets with Flip and Steele. It's where the money's at. It's where we try to get you the most money to fill your pockets and bring home for the wife or the husband. And, Flip and I have been heating up the last week. The bets, the lock of the nights have definitely been hitting. We've been hitting those big time, Flip. And I want to hear what your first bet is, because I think you know a couple of mine already.
And that's okay. As long as the listeners out there, we keep feeding them some winners, and I think that's what's important. This segment always fires me up. I'm making my own picks every single night. Check us out on Twitter. Check both Steele and I out on Twitter. We're throwing out our picks and our thoughts. Let us know what you think. Hit us up in the comments. We really appreciate all the feedback. But yeah, Steele, Tuesday night, nine game board, a lot to take in here. I'll kick it off with this, because my second pick and my lock of the night actually come from the same game. But my first pick of the night, and I'm going with a team that I know you just talked about burning you in, the New Jersey Devils, good sir. I'm taking the Devils at home on the puck line plus 1.5 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I really like this spot for the New Jersey Devils. And despite, their last games, they're, not anything respectable in their net, right? Like, this is what I've talked about over the last little while. But actually, Gillies has been better than his numbers show. Aside from getting pumped by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and hang with me here, his numbers, 283 goals against and a 920 save percentage. So those numbers, he's actually been better than the record and the numbers show. So I wanted to show him a little bit of love. But the Devils also play well against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're 2-2 in their last 4 games, and those 2 losses were 1-goal games. They're also undefeated at home against Jersey of late, and I think that this is in one of those good spots for the New Jersey Devils to keep it close. Let's not get it twisted here. I still could see Tampa Bay winning this game, but I think it will be a close one, and in a spot where, after looking at this situation in Tampa Bay's schedule, they're off for the next 7 days. This is a big spot for them, for a team that's played a lot of hockey over the last few years. They know that they always deal with injuries up front to their forward group. This is a big week of off time coming up. They're playing in New Jersey. It doesn't feel like a good spot for them. I do think it's still Tampa versus New Jersey. I'm not trying to get crazy here, but hang with me. Devils on the puck line plus 1.5 at plus 104. That's my first pick of the night, brother.
Yeah, it's a solid pick. I don't think I'm going to put some money down on that, because, it is the Tampa Bay Lightning. You don't really know. You sort of know what to expect from those top guys, like you mentioned. But again, them looking to get onto this off time as quickly as possible after this game. They're looking forward to that. So, I'm sitting on the fence with that one right now. I'll tell you that. I'm sitting on the fence at plus.
That's fair. That's fair. And I will throw out this last stat. I'll throw this last stat out. Devils have looked a lot better since the All-Star break.
Yes.
And have scored 16 goals in 3 games. So I'm not completely out of left field. Of course, it's a hard sell with a team like the Devils, and I tried to give you a hard sell on Gillies as well. Do you like how I teed that up for you? Hey, he's not been that bad. Yeah, that was not bad, eh?
It was pretty good.
Pretty good. Well, anyway, brother,
this one might be a hard sell as well, and I've already talked about them for my DFS selections, and that's the New York Rangers on the puck line versus the Boston Bruins. Right. Like I said, this Boston Bruins team looks completely different without Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron in the lineup, and this New York Rangers team just seems like, to me, they're a top 5 team right now. Mm-hmm. And they just continue to keep the ball rolling, and going up against this depleted Bruins team, I'm taking the New York Rangers on the puck line for sure.
You're the puck line king.
I am the puck line king.
Back to the Rangers. We almost might as well call this the Blue Shirt Podcast, because it's like
we might have to
the Rangers fan club over here. We're just always, it's like every other episode we're gushing on this Rangers team, but for good reason. And maybe it's because now we've talked ourselves up about it, but you can't deny the situation that the Boston Bruins find themselves in. And looking at that lineup completely objectively, sorry, and not as a subjective Leafs fan hating, it doesn't look too nice. Just straight up and down. It does not look too nice. Goaltending question marks all over the ice. Aside from that top line, which is obviously one of the best in the business when they're clicking, if not the best, this is not the Boston Bruins of old, and they're in trouble. So the Rangers are the move here. And I think this is a big, they're battling in that Metro division. So I expect to see a lot of close games down the stretch for the New York Rangers, because I really do expect them to take a decent run.
I think they're going to make a deep playoff run this year, especially. Like, I was really disappointed last season when they missed the playoffs, but I think if they can make a big trade before the deadline, it'll set them above and beyond to go make a deep playoff run and even potentially get to the Stanley Cup Finals. With my second pick for big time bets, it's the Washington Capitals money line plus 120 against the Nashville Predators. The Predators are at home. I'm taking the Capitals because they did lose 4-1 against the Ottawa Senators over the weekend. I think they really need a bounce back game, and I think this sets up perfectly for them, where they can play a fast, physical game against this Nashville team and just keep putting shots on net against UC Saros. And with Alex Ovechkin back in the lineup, him slotted in his office there, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Tom Wilson, all of those guys have great skill and great physical toll on their opponents. And I think it's a great matchup on the road against this Predators team. So I'm going to take the Capitals on the money line at plus 120. And just to finish it off with my last bet of the night, yes, I'm going to take the Colorado Avalanche versus Dallas Stars under 6 goals plus 110. Okay. I can potentially see it moving to 6.5. So I'm still going to take the under no matter if it's 6 or 6.5. But like I mentioned before, the Avalanche won 4-0 against the Stars over the weekend. Nathan McKinnon's back in the lineup. Darcy Kemper has been a lot better of late, like in his last 2 or 3 games, I believe. So I'm gonna take this game on the under at plus 110.
I like that angle. And Kemper is a streaky goalie. I think you and I have talked about him being, he's injury prone. He can be inconsistent, but when he's hot, he definitely looks like a number 1 goaltender. And there's a reason that the Colorado Avalanche acquired him in the offseason. So they obviously believe that he at least can be the option for now. And when he is rolling, he's rolling. So I like playing that angle here for sure, Steele, and taking it under against, 2 Western Conference teams that play each other quite a bit. Maybe there'll be that kind of maybe a gritty 3-2, maybe 4-2 finish. I like the under call. My second pick and lock of the night both come from the same game. I'm going to the beauty of the New York Islanders Buffalo Sabres game for a nitty-gritty matchup, but I've got some nitty-gritty picks here, Steele. Might be a hard sell for you on my second pick, but I think my lock of the night you're really going to like. I'll start with my second pick. I'm going with the Sabres on the money line plus 165.
Oh, wow.
I like the spot for the Sabres. We talked about the Islanders, and you were not wrong with them needing to turn it around in a big way. And if anyone to do it against, sure, why not the Sabres? But the Islanders are 2-5 in their last 7 games overall. And the Sabres have won the last 2 or 3 against the Islanders, including the last 2 at home. Buffalo has looked pretty good coming back from the All-Star break. They lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets and then won the other night. But that Blue Jackets game could have gone either way, and it was a 4-3 and a close game. I like them at home. I like the spot. I like the odd. But what I really like is their hottest player right now, Alex Tuch. Yeah. Anytime assist is my lock of the night for Tuesday night. Have a look at the Alex Tuch player props. This guy is the real deal. I've talked him up. I have him on a couple of different platforms. He's played in Vegas and, not getting a ton of media coverage. He is a solid 2-way player. He is clicking on that top line with Jeff Skinner and Tage Thompson. He was a big part of Skinner's 4 goal. Was it 4 goals or was it a hat trick?
I believe it was 4 goals.
So 3 or 4 goal night. Tuch assisted on every single one of them. He had 3 assists. So I thought it was 3 goals, but anyway, could have been 4. He is red hot. He has been so good since coming back. He has 17 points in 15 games. I really like him to continue to roll. I think this is a good spot for the Sabres overall. So obviously I like that same angle, and it tends to work a lot. If you like the team, go to the team's player props and, hammer the offensive side of the thing. So Alex Tuch, my lock of the night, Steele. We're looking to keep the locks of the night rolling. We're keeping it hot for all you listeners out there. So hammer Alex Tuch, and as I like to say, thank me later.
It was a 4-goal night for Jeff Skinner. He actually had 5. He actually did have 5 points in a 5-3 win over the Montreal Canadiens on Sunday night. So Jeff Skinner has definitely turned it around compared to last season. I absolutely love your lock of the night with Alex Tuck anytime assist. That guy has been absolutely monstrous since the Buffalo Sabres acquired him. I completely disagree with your take on the Buffalo Sabres money line. I think the New York Islanders take this. We'll continue this with the side bets. I think you're still up on me there, but so your lock of the night, Alex Tuck anytime assist. My lock of the night is going to be the Washington Capitals money line at plus 120 versus the Nashville Predators. So everybody pencil it in, lock it in for your lock of the night. Make yourself some money here with these bets. Flip and I have been absolutely rolling. And with that being said, thanks so much for making Locked On Fantasy your first listen every single day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick every day, make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms, just like this podcast right here. So please go make sure you follow and subscribe to us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate all the support. Like we say so many times, we appreciate all the support you guys give us out there. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the podcast. And if you subscribe and follow, you will get the latest episode of Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as it's available each and every day. Thank you again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all of your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.